So this presentation strives to focus on impediments to commercialization, remembering as we go through it that we spend somewhere between $2 and $3 billion a year in Canada on basic research in the life sciences. This is your money and mine funneled through the government into basic research, which I'm a fan of, but you'll see where it comes apart. The data that I'm going to give you relate almost entirely to human health biotechnology development, but the arguments that I make and the outcomes that are required are largely similar for husbandry and feedstock as they are for human medicine. These papers that I highlight in red represent innovations and discoveries unparalleled in number in the world. They're a national resource of excellence, no less than Canada's happy accident of having rocks, trees, oil and gas pools that support what we believe are the most important industries in this country. I don't know whether we believe it, but our governments believe it. Of the $1 trillion that the Medicare has spent in Canada, virtually no products have emerged. How is this possible? And notwithstanding that we represent approximately 3% of life sciences knowledge, we sell about 1% of its products into the world's largest market, which is next door. So what does it mean that more peer-reviewed papers than any other medical center in the world? Why should we even care about the commercialization of our basic biological research? Is there an economic consequence? Or is this just arcane self-congratulation that we're doing all this? After all, governments are busy with much more important things than biotech. They've got worrying about oil and gas revenues and mining and forestry and banking and life insurance, and let's not forget automotive manufacturing in Ontario. So what can a biotech deliver of any economic consequence based on those peer-reviewed papers? What could the outcome be? So what I've done is I've taken market capitalization as a proxy for economic value. It's fair enough. It represents what the market is prepared to value an enterprise at today with respect to its future economic deliveries. So 20 years ago, 6 U.S. biotech companies, and biotech means companies that were founded on peer-reviewed papers. But 20 years ago, these 6, other than Amgen, the other 5 were completely inconsequential. They'd probably make it on the Toronto Stock Exchange venture exchange, given those market capitalizations. 10 years ago, this is what happened to those same market caps. And we still had Regeneron and Alexion at, on the few $100 million. So 10 years is a perfectly good time frame for public policy to grasp what the yield can be from the commercialization of life sciences. So 20 years is a bit too far for anybody who's elected, because they're not going to be around. But 10 years is not unreasonable. This is what's happened in the 10 years to our competitors, remembering what we started with. Remember the phrase? More peer-reviewed papers than any other medical center in the world. So that's nice. So these companies have made a lot of money for their shareholders, and what the hell does it mean? So like $168 billion of market cap. So what? And incidentally, 45,000 employees, keep that in mind, in just these 6 companies. There are hundreds of major size companies in the United States based on those peer-reviewed papers. There are none in Canada of any consequence. None. So this is what it means. Celgene and Amgen. Celgene didn't exist 20 years ago, and 10 years ago it wasn't much of a company. Celgene, just 2, have a larger market capitalization than 1,513 listed mining companies in this country. Just 3 of them more than GM, Ford, and Toyota. I don't mean GM Ontario or GM Canada. GM worldwide, Ford, and Toyota, the world's largest automotive manufacturer. 3 biotech companies, which 20 years ago largely didn't exist. Just 4 of them, 4 exceed our entire market capitalization of our big 6 banks, plus Manufacturers Life, plus Sun Life. And those same 6 are larger than every single public oil and gas company in this country. And our public policy has not supported the development of one single company of any consequence, notwithstanding that we have this monumental asset. And incidentally, people talk about forestry as important to Canada. Gilead spills more money each day than the entire forest capitalization, $16 billion. It's just not of consequence. So the blame for our national shame lies squarely at the feet of our various governments, largely but not entirely the federal government. The absence of constructive public policy at the federal level and the absence of an encouraging environment at the provincial level, together with a tragic disinterest by the Toronto Stock Exchange, of which I used to be a governor, in small and medium-sized enterprises, is responsible for the black hole of Canadian commercialization of its exceptional science. So an error is a policy decision that turns out to be wrong. And that's the nature of human decision-making. Most of us make wrong decisions. A folly is making the same error whilst in possession of all the information necessary to not make such a mistake. Canadian public policy in respect of the life sciences is a folly. And this is the message I hope each and every one of you will be able to make to your representatives who purport to have our economic interest at heart. Look at these data and hang our heads in shame. Canada lacks no science, it lacks no entrepreneurs, it lacks no management skills, it lacks no engineers, it lacks no capital. Keep the engineer word in your mind for a moment. It lacks no capital. So what is impeding the commercialization of Canadian biological exploration? I shall repeat the 3 factors and then add some more. Federal policies specifically discourage investment in commercialization of biological exploration by aggressively subsidizing investment in geological exploration. Joe Oliver and Greg Rickford announced an extension of the mining tax credit because there are enormous challenges facing mining and oil and gas companies, the low probability of success, large capital requirements, and a long time frame before reporting cash flow. Does that sound familiar to anybody in this room? This is insane. There is a paucity of venture capital in Canada because the door to the exit is barred. It's the exit that's important. If the exit was open, venture capital, early stage capital for your enterprises and ours would be available. But it's the door to the exit that's barred. It's the public markets. Because public markets, $5.5 billion in mining and oil and gas over the last few years. Public markets is where the major capital comes from for all these enterprises. The prospects for growth in an economy from the life sciences dwarfs the prospects for growth and from mining and oil and gas and forestry and automotive. It dwarfs the prospect for the financial sector. What is our current government thinking? In as far as the Venture Capital Action Plan is concerned, the model will not do a single thing for the life sciences, yours or mine. Employment, the unemployment rate facing university science graduates approximates 20%. And Ontario graduates almost 50% of the scientists nationally. Approximately 63% of life sciences companies have less than 10 employees, and only 4% have more than 100. So this is not a solitary rant nor a solitary cry in the wild. How can governments not grasp they are deliberately or ignorantly damaging Canada economically when the life sciences, all of them, create high-paying jobs for university graduates, the building of factories to manufacture vaccines and therapeutics, resulting in jobs for architects, engineers, workers, and financiers. Huge activity around the biotech arena. Reduction in provincial health care costs by reducing medicinal imports, restoring our place on the podium. What is this government thinking? I've shown you, incidentally, this is not a political comment, it's every government of every of persuasion has had exactly the same approach, the impediment to capital raising in this country, whereas our American friends find it the exact opposite. The provincial government can easily create an environment conducive to capital formation, and particularly by exercising its mandate over the stock exchanges, the provincial government can do it by joining the march on Ottawa, because that's where it has to change. The bio-business of husbandry and human health is not going to be solved by dribbling government-determined and government-managed funding beyond basic research. It is the capital of public investors that does it. Is there any evidence? The governments, federal, provincial, and municipal, that recognize and fuel this huge engine will stand head and shoulders above their predecessors.